switch this button. Don't want my chest hanging out.
What goes into crafting the instruments that fill our world with music?
And you covered the holes, man. You did. You got the low G there as well.
Welcome to The Instrument Makers, a new YouTube series where we visit diverse instrument workshops.
Oh, this blade's not very sharp. That's very annoying.
Explore the artistry and techniques of master craftsmen.
I'm going to credit this. This is David's upgrade.
And share the fascinating stories and insights we discover along the way.
Wanna try it?
Today, we find ourselves in Hilo on the big island of Hawaii, where we're about to meet an exceptional craftsman. Nathaniel Rich of Nathaniel Rich Strings is not just a skilled maker of guitars and ukuleles, he's also believed to be the youngest full-time professional luthier in the entire state. Join us as we uncover the story of this rising star in the world of instrument making, exploring how he honed his craft and turned his passion into his livelihood.
All right, Nathaniel, here we are at Hilo in your wonderful workshop here.
So I started out building classical guitars, and then that led me to steel string guitars, and now being in Hawaii, I do a lot of ukuleles also. No, originally I'm from North Carolina, actually.
Okay, we're in North Carolina.
Central part of the state. I grew up in Sophie and then went to high school in Greensboro, which was for Performing and Visual Arts High School. And that's where I started classical guitar. And yeah, I grew up in North Carolina, and then I moved to California when I was 18 to go to the Conservatory of Music. And did 1 year there and decided instrument building was for me rather than performance. And I stayed for about 15 years in California. Well, I had been building before I went to the conservatory. I grew up in a family of craftsmen, and to backstep to high school a little bit, I became a good enough player where I needed a better instrument. We couldn't afford one, so my parents told me to build one. So I actually went to the conservatory and auditioned on the guitar that I built and then played it while I was there. And that was kind of the thing that I was doing performance and playing on an instrument of mine. And I just really was gravitating more towards the building. Yeah, tremendously. The first one, I had a lot of help from my parents who were woodworkers. And the second one, I kind of did more on my own, but got some different books and had some people I could ask questions to. And I did that the summer after graduating high school in between their conservatory, and that was really what lit the fire in me to continue on building. Well, I feel like every builder, especially in string instruments where you're carving wood away and you're adding braces and everything, we all have our own voice in how we approach that. So of course, my instruments have their own voicing, and I like to be able to control that within ways that I can match the client's demands, but also all my instruments are designed from the ground up. They're, the body shapes, every line, every measurement is like nothing's a copy of another instrument. It's always an original. I start with drawing on paper. That's just what I'm most comfortable with, and now I'm trying to learn how to put that into CAD programs and learn the 3D modeling aspect of it also, because in a lot of ways that's where the industry is going. But still, when it comes to the basic creative part, I like to start on paper. And like I do draw full size, and I'll change a line 100 times over the span of a couple of weeks until I, find the one I like. In general, yeah, they're kind of just sized down classical guitars. There is less bracing in general because you're just dealing with a smaller surface area. But the techniques are exactly the same. It's primarily just they're voiced a little bit different, but the construction's almost identical. They're all a challenge. I think what I like building the most still tends to be a classical guitar, because that was like my instrument that I played the most of. It's what I'm most comfortable on performing as a musician. And but I've surprised myself building other ones and just had a blast. And I do some spec builds, and I do primarily custom order, but I do think it's important to have some spec builds in the mix too, where you can try things out, and it's not designed necessarily to an individual, but that's where you can try out your new ideas and your new designs and have a little bit more freedom in the creative side. I think it depends on which part of the process I'm in, as far as like what I'm feeling that day. Yeah, because it's a pretty broad array of tasks where, like, especially here, like if working with woods that are available in Hawaii, we have curly koa, and it's amazing. But we have an interesting problem of, if you want to buy curly koa here, often you buy it wet. and you need to mill it and dry it yourself. And a lot of mainland luthiers don't have that problem. And so that's a very, very just, milling is kind of mind numbing, like you're just standing in front of the saw and you're running it through, making these plates, and that's just a physically grueling day. And then sometimes I'm doing rosettes, and it's like, hundreds of tiny little pieces. And that's when I get more into like a meditative state doing it, where I can just kind of sit there and lock in and be in one spot for hours just doing this task. And, that's it. There's a broad array of feelings and emotions, anger, enjoyment, all the things.
But it must feel very nice by the time you're done and it's sitting on your table and there it is.
Yeah. That's, when it's complete, that's the best feeling. And especially when you're happy with it.
Right now, what are some things that you enjoy most about building?
The creativity of it, it's, I've always been in love with music, and I get to do that every day in my own way. It's like I don't play much these days, but I'm still in the industry, and I still am able to create something that someone else can use and create something I love. I'm only in my 30s right now as far as instruments built. A fair amount of my time throughout my career has also been spent doing repair work. And I think that's a common story for a lot of builders. And it's a good way to pay bills and keep the lights on, and also build chops for your building too. Because if you're doing repair, then you get to do fingerboard dressings or fret dressings, and you really get that practice in. And like because instrument building, just like playing music, is all about practice and like hours long of doing things. So in a lot of ways, especially in setup work, repairs, just you can become incredibly proficient at it much faster than if you were building alone. If you only do 6 guitars a year, you only do 6 fret dressings a year, or if you're doing a repair, then maybe you get up in the 20 or 30s at least. Well, I've been in the industry for coming up on 20 years now, and at first there was a lot of just reading, and I was at the age that YouTube became a thing too, and like you could learn a lot, watching videos of respected builders. There's a lot of bad information out there too, but you were able to use the internet at that time. But after I built for quite a few years, I started visiting other luthiers, and I was able to ask them questions and create relationships. And then I got jobs in other areas. Like I worked for Upright Bass Shop for about 10 years with Guyle McKeon in Berkeley, and I built a tremendous amount of chops working for him. And then later I was asked to come work for Irvin Samaji, who's one of the world's best guitar builders in Oakland, and I worked for him up until the pandemic, which wasn't a terribly long period of time. Also, we moved to Hawaii short thereafter, but that was an incredibly rewarding experience, and just learned so much in that process of working for someone like Irvin, who just is the very top of the industry. For classical, I always really loved Roland. That was one of my go-tos as far as modern guitar composition that I really like. Maximo Diego is also another classical guitar composer. A lot of the Hawaiian music too, it's a lot of it is composed now, but a lot of them are traditional tunes that they don't necessarily have a set composer. It's just traditional music that has progressed over the years too. So that's something I gravitate more towards these days, but it's more so people's individual renditions. Recently, I've been learning slack key, and that's something I've really enjoyed learning. And there are some similar techniques to classical in that, just mostly in the right hand, but it's still different getting your brain to work in that way.
You're gonna have to educate me on what slack key is.
So slack key is a type of guitar playing here in Hawaii, and it's basically referring to slacked tunings. So the guitar is down tuned to alternate tunings, a lot of times open tunings. And it is specific to Hawaii. If I'm not mistaken, the Paniolos brought the guitars with them when they were first working ranches here, and then the Hawaiians adopted the guitar as an instrument of their own and found their own way of playing it, and that's what gave birth to slack key, which is just a beautiful, incredible music.
Wow, can you give me an example of what it would be dropped down to? Like an example.
Sometimes C, sometimes G. One of the more common ones is taro patch tuning, so that would be DG, DG, BD.
Okay, you got a G chord right there.
Yeah, exactly. And coming from a classical background, that's really hard to wrap your head around that kind of tuning playing. But once you get the hang of it, it's all a lot of fun.
Could you tell us about this guitar that you made?
This guitar belongs to somebody here locally. It was one of the first steel strings I built. I sold it a few years ago, and luckily it's here on the Big Island. And it was kind of one of the first guitars I built in that Samoji style. So it's kind of a modified dreadnought design like his were. And it's one that turned out really well, and I'm really happy with how it's doing. Living in Hawaii and high humidity and everything, it's aging in really well, and it's a spruce top, Indian rosewood back and sides, and I'm no longer building this exact model, but there's a lot of things aesthetically that are still similar with my current builds.
One of the first things I am noticing, or maybe I'm imagining it, the shape is very unique. Is this right?
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe it. It's less round at the top. I'm not sure. So how would you describe this?
A little more rounded at the top. A lot of times dreadnoughts have a very flat termination as it goes to the neck, and that's the Martin style. So this is a little more rounded, and it is a dreadnought guitar, so that's something very common for bluegrass, and also Hawaiian music uses dreadnoughts quite a bit too, but they've kind of fallen out of popularity more in recent years for smaller body guitars that are a little easier to play because it's big.
Yeah.
Well, traditionally they're a little bit different shape anyways, but steel strings have a tremendous amount more pressure on them, like string tension, than classicals do. Like classicals would measure at around 80 to 90 pounds, and steel strings 150 to 175. So you have to build them braced a lot heavier and a little bit thicker soundboard. Quite a few differences.
I don't want to embarrass myself by playing it because I'm not a guitarist.
Oh,
But can I play a little bit of
it's
it?
slack key right now too. So that's the tuning I was telling you about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. Oh, I see what's going on. Okay. So you can just keep playing chords up and down.
Yeah, there's a lot of different shapes, and more than anything, it's about being able to have the alternating bass line with slide keys. So there's always exactly. So it's always going underneath the melody with slide key.
Is that kind of what we would do with this?
That's, kind of, yeah.
Is there a certain local wood that you particularly like?
Well, Hawaiian koa is the most used local wood, and it's a gorgeous wood. It's highly figured, and that's about as good as it gets right now. But yeah, koa is definitely the most iconic Hawaiian wood. It was used for canoes, and it's the traditional wood for ukuleles. So yeah, it's a special wood here in Hawaii. Well, just on some of the tone wood selection aspects, like this is a redwood board that I recently milled. So a lot of times in selecting wood, I'll do that intuitively and flex it and feel it, and I'll have a good idea of it that way. But I've moved over with the help of another luthier, David Hurd, who wrote Left Brain Luthery. He's here in Hilo, and he really set me down the path of quantifying those results and figuring out ways to test the wood. And
We'll do that again. What do you hear in this wood that might has a almost metallic sound?
Yeah, this particular one is super bright, and the sustain lasts a long time on it. But now with technology moving the way it is, with a few apps like FFT apps, then you can record that sound sample, and just off of certain frequencies you can track in the wood, you can know what strength the wood is. And you can track the speed of sound in it, and all these things that you can get just off of a few measurements off of an app on your phone now. So I've really moved over to at least documenting these things and figuring out how to incorporate that into my building and just recording it. So if something does work particularly well, I might know what that was.
Are you going to be joining these two pieces together?
Yeah.
Is it important that they make the same frequencies?
So these were one piece, and it was sawed down the middle, and then that creates that book match. Another special build I'm doing right now, this is a commission from someone who had a set of the tree mahogany, which is one of the rarest woods in the world. And it's this super figured quilted mahogany, and it's all of this one tree. So it's super valuable, so I'm really lucky to be working with it, and the client wanted me to build with this. So this is going to be an OM steel string, and with a bear claw Sitka top, and this is more of a modern bracing system that you see on a lot of Samoji style guitars, where it's a little denser bracing down here, and you can push the limits of how thin you can take the top thin.
Do you have a preference of bracing?
I'm still moving things around a little bit, but now the adjustments are smaller each time. Early out, I would just change things all over the place, and it turns out that's not a good way to really know what you did. So now it's all about small changes. The plates are done now, so the sides are bent there in the other room. Now I'll be laminating the sides, and that gives it a really rigid structure. And then once the sides are done, they'll get glued onto the top here, and then I'll complete the final voicing, and that's where I'll remove material until I get the deflections I want, the sound I want, and I'll document the frequencies once I reach that point. And I'll just show, this is my clamping system here, which is called a go-bar deck, and these are created with counter tension in between the two, and this is actually a curtain rod that but it's spring tension and it's adjustable, so I really like using this.
I thought people were using books this whole time, just heavy bucks.
This guitar is about halfway right now, so once I get the box closed in the next few weeks, we'll do inlays on the outside of the box and the neck, and then we start finishing. And I do a lot of French polish and oil finishes, and the French polishing can take a lot of time too. But in my opinion, it's one of the better finishes. It's and it's non-toxic, especially in a space that is hard to ventilate here because I have to climate control. I do like using as much non-toxic things as I can.
Have you made that mistake before and you went home feeling dizzy?
Yeah, I think every builder does that from time to time and try to avoid it, and always like, oh, that was stupid afterwards. But yeah, that was try to keep all the fumes outside of the shop. These are the sides to the guitar in the other room, and because they're so highly figured, bending these sides was quite the chore. And I have a bending form that I use silicone heating blankets. These are the outer laminates. These are the inner laminates. So after this, they'll get put into another form that they'll get glued together.
So as in another form, it's going to be double layered?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is that typical?
It's more and more common. A lot of builders are doing that these days.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's all to bring stiffness to the sides. And this is a set that's already been laminated, so you can see the glue's seeping through still here, but they need to be trimmed down. But then they live in this form, and that's when you actually can start to see the guitar shape taking form.
Did you make these molds yourself?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have to make a different one every time you have a new type of body shape?
Yeah, for every model. Some builders build without molds. It's never been my style too. I've always liked having that for the sides to stay in, and it just kind of, it keeps everything a little more consistent in my opinion. So yeah, so a lot of times I'll get wood in billet form like this and do some initial test on it, and then it gets milled out. Yeah, all that's ready to become instruments.
It has a nice smell, I just realized walking by.
It is funny, like every time somebody gets a new guitar, they'll smell in the sound hole. And be like, oh, it smells good. And I think for me, that wood would be Spanish cedar. And it's a very like aromatic wood. And it's used a lot for bracing and kerfing, and it just has a very kind of sweet aromatic smell.
I'm noticing math equations behind you. What's going on here?
That's a little bit of what I was talking about for just the math behind grading tone wood. So, these formulas with a little bit of other information, you can figure out the speed of sound, which then you can figure out with density, the Young's modulus or modulus of elasticity, and then radiation coefficient. So all of these are useful numbers during building, and pretty much you can grade your tone wood selection that way. So I essentially have a database now of wood that I know from top to bottom which ones are the best sonically.
Can you tell me about these bases that you got going? I've never seen a base this thin. It's
these are some repairs I'm working on right now. I mean, this one's a 1937K. It's a plywood school bass, but it's the first year they were in production, so it's a really cool old instrument. You better love it because it's not the easiest profession in the world, and learn all you can. There's a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge in it, and if they're willing to share it with you, then listen. I think that's one of the most important things that I think builders try to reinvent the wheel a lot, and I know I did in my early career, and I learned a lot doing that, but there were certainly easier ways to obtain the same knowledge. I just finished a build, and it's also made out of this wood, the tree, which was donated by Nick Howlett to build a charity ukulele to benefit the people of Lahaina that were affected by the wildfires last year. So it's something I just finished, and now it's currently in auction at the ukulele site, and it's going to end next week. So 100% of the proceeds of that build go to the people of Lahaina. It's like my part's donated to building it. The wood was donated, which was a tremendous gift, and the ukulele site is also donating their time to sell it to through the platform of the auction. So that's one of the more memorable projects I've had because it is so impactful, and like it will mean that people get helped.
Since filming this video in July, Nathaniel has finished making the guitar. Visiting Nathaniel Rich was truly inspiring. His meticulous approach and thoughtful craftsmanship clearly set him apart as a young luthier. The care he puts into every aspect of design and construction demonstrates his expertise and passion for the craft. With his youthful energy and dedication, Nathaniel's future in luthiery undoubtedly shines bright. As we've seen throughout the Instrument Maker series, creating musical instruments is an art that requires a unique blend of skills. What qualities do you think are essential for luthiers to thrive in today's world? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. For more fascinating stories of instrument makers around the world, check out our other episodes on this channel or visit our website for exclusive content. Thank you for watching. While editing this video, I realized how much I say certain filler words.
All right. Gotcha. All right. Gotcha.